Man, the situation with Isaiah Rodgers is stirring up a lot of talk in Philly right now, and honestly, it's easy to see why. Not only are we about to face the Minnesota Vikings, his current team, but a lot of Eagles fans are still feeling a certain type of way about how things ended. Some feel betrayed. Others think it's just business. But when you take a step back and really look at the situation, it's a little more complicated than just a guy chasing a better deal. First off, let's acknowledge what Isaiah Rodgers meant to this team. Even with limited snaps, he was a dog. Straight up. Every time he stepped on the field, he looked like a starter. Physical, instinctual, fast, he brought energy to the secondary. And when guys like Slay were banged up or not producing at a high level, Rodgers stepped in and made plays. Some fans, myself included, even thought he was the second-best corner on the team at one point. Yeah, Slay had a good year, but let's not forget how often he was hurt. And Rodgers? Man, the dude was consistent and available, which means a lot in this league. So why did he leave? That's the million-dollar question. Because now we're hearing reports that the Eagles did try to keep him. Apparently, they offered a deal similar to what Minnesota put on the table. And instead of staying in Philly, a city that gave him a second chance after that suspension, he chose to go to the Vikings. And that got some people fired up, like, yo, what happened to the love for the birds? Some even called him out like, if you really wanted to stay here, why'd you bounce for the same money? I get that reaction, but I don't fully buy into the narrative that he dipped on Philly just because. Here's where I throw my theory into the mix. I think it had more to do with the locker room dynamic and less to do with the numbers. I really believe Isaiah Rodgers cared about this team. But I also think he cared about some of the guys in that secondary room, especially a young player like Khalil Ringo. From everything I've seen, those two had a solid bond. Real tight. Rodgers was kind of a mentor, a big bro figure. And when you have that type of relationship, you sometimes put the team, or in this case, your guy, ahead of yourself. Think about it. Slay was on his way out. We all knew that. His cap number was too high, and the team was clearly looking to get younger and faster in the secondary. So if you're Rodgers, and you're looking around like, if I re-sign here, I might block Khalil from getting his shot, you might start thinking differently. Especially if you know you can get a starting gig somewhere else. In Minnesota, that was the perfect situation. They needed help in the secondary, they had money to spend, and Rodgers knew he could go in there and make an immediate impact. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't want to be the guy that stood in the way of someone else's growth. That's real. That's selfless. It's not the flashy storyline, but it's the one that makes the most sense to me. Because you look at how that cornerback room was built, man, it was tight. They all got along. They all respected each other. And Rodgers? He was the vet that had already proven himself. So instead of taking up a spot, maybe he said, you know what, this kid deserves his shot, and I'm not going to be the reason he doesn't get it. Now, sure, he could have stayed. He could have fought for his spot again, and he probably would have gotten it. But what if this was about more than just playing time? What if this was about giving someone else a chance to shine? That's the story I believe in. And I get it. Fans don't want to hear that. They want loyalty. They want guys to stay and fight. But sometimes, the bigger move is stepping aside, especially when you've already proven what you can do and you've got another opportunity lined up. But here's where it backfires a little. Because the young guy he left the spot for, he's not exactly lighting it up right now. And now fans are frustrated. Like, why didn't we just pay Rodgers that $7.5 million for 2 years? Why didn't we throw in a little extra to keep him? And listen, Howie Roseman tried. He did. But Rodgers made a choice, and I think it was a choice rooted in respect, not rejection. And that's tough to explain when emotions are running high. Fans see him in a Vikings jersey and feel like he turned his back on the team. But maybe, just maybe, he was doing something most players wouldn't, giving up his spot so someone else could grow. That kind of mindset doesn't always get appreciated in the moment, but in the long run, it says a lot about the type of teammate he was. So yeah, Isaiah Rodgers is gone, and it stings. Not because he wasn't replaceable, but because we saw the potential. We saw how he fit. And when a guy like that walks, it creates a gap, not just in talent, but in chemistry. But hey, we move on. That's football. The real question now is, how do we fill that hole? Because clearly, what we're doing right now isn't cutting it. And let's be real, this defense needs to get back to that physical, nasty energy it had last year. We've seen flashes of it, but the consistency hasn't been there. Whether it's the D-line getting home or the secondary holding tight in coverage, we're not seeing that same edge. And that's where leadership matters. That's where guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter got to step up. Speaking of which, let's talk about the injury report. Some key names popping up, but also some encouraging signs. Grant Calcaterra is still nursing that rib issue, which sucks because when he's healthy, he adds a little something different to the offense. Landon Dickerson was back at practice. Limited, yeah, but at least he's out there. That's a good sign. Same with Quinyon Mitchell. Limited, but participating. Zach Bond, full participant with that finger injury, so we like that. Now, Jalen Carter, full go. That's huge. He's been dealing with a heel injury, but it sounds like he's feeling good enough to play. He even said himself the rehab's been slow, but steady. Not the fastest process, but he's ready. That's all we need to hear. And then there's Jordan Davis. Another full participant, but man, he's been quiet lately. Real quiet. You almost forget he's on the field sometimes, which is not what you want from a guy his size with his talent. Maybe the shoulder's been bothering him more than we know. Either way, he's got to make his presence felt again. The good news is, it sounds like the locker room is getting back into the right mindset. After 2 straight losses, you might expect a little panic, a little frustration. But if you listen to these players talk, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, even Saquon Barkley, you hear a different tone. You hear a team that's not rattled. They're not dwelling on the past. They're looking forward, focused, motivated. And honestly, that's exactly what you want to hear. A.J. Brown even said it. We're not letting a loss humble us. And he's right. This league doesn't wait for you to figure it out. You either bounce back or get buried. That's the reality. And it seems like this team is ready to bounce back. A.J. was talking about self-inflicted wounds, little things like execution breakdowns on 3rd down or communication lapses. Those things are fixable. It's not like we're getting beat because we lack talent. It's the mental stuff. And once you clean that up, you're back to being dangerous. Jalen Hurts echoed that same energy, said the team was flying around at practice. Everyone's still hungry. Nobody's walking around with their head down. That's what leadership looks like. That's how you survive the ebbs and flows of a season. And if there's one thing this team is going for it, it's a core of guys who know how to handle adversity. They've been here before. They know how to respond. Even Saquon Barkley, who's still getting used to being in this offense, talked about the importance of communication during the bye week. Said everyone came together, had honest conversations, and worked to get back on the same page. That's the type of stuff that matters in November and December. That's how you build momentum heading into the stretch run. Now, with all of that said, it's time to shift the focus completely to what's happening right now inside that Eagles locker room, and why this stretch coming up might just define their season. After 2 straight losses, it's not panic mode. It's actually something else entirely. It's a regrouping moment, a reset. And judging by the way these players are talking, they're locked in and ready to respond. Let's start with the vibe, because that's something you can't always measure in stats or injury reports. But you can hear it. You can feel it when these guys talk. A.J. Brown isn't sulking. He's not frustrated or blaming anyone. He's calm, confident, and real. When he was asked about the energy in the building, he didn't dodge it. He didn't sugarcoat it. He straight up said, "Yeah, it's normal." And that's big. Because when things go wrong in this league, it's real easy for the noise to take over. The doubt, the frustration, the finger pointing. But when your top guys are saying the energy feels normal, that tells you the culture is still solid. He talked about self-inflicted wounds, about those little mistakes that add up, the kind of mental errors that don't show up on highlights but can change games. Missed assignments on 3rd down, a false start here, a misread route there. That's what's been hurting this offense. It's not the scheme. It's not the talent. It's the timing, the details. And A.J. knows that if they clean that up, they're going to be back to putting up big numbers in no time. And it's not just A.J. Jalen Hurts is out there saying the same thing. He said the energy at practice has been on point. Guys flying around. Nobody moping. Nobody walking around like the season is lost. That's the mark of a veteran-led team. Hurts understands that this isn't about 1 or 2 games. It's about the long run. It's about how you respond when things aren't perfect. And right now, this team looks like it's in full bounce-back mode. Then you hear from Saquon Barkley, a guy who hasn't been in this locker room long, but already sounds like he's been here for years. He talked about that players' only offensive meeting, the one that, let's be honest, might have been a turning point. He said everybody spoke up. Everybody communicated. No egos. Just football. Just a group of guys trying to figure out how to get this thing rolling again. And that's what you want from a leader, someone who can come in, even as a newcomer, and help reset the tone. That meeting sounds like it was about getting back to the basics, reconnecting with what made this group dangerous in the first place. And look, it's easy to say we're fine after a loss. Teams do it all the time. But there's a difference between false confidence and real belief. This doesn't feel like fake hype. It feels like a group that knows who they are, that understands they let a couple games slip, but also knows they have everything they need to fix it. On the field, though, the proof has to be in the execution. This matchup with Minnesota is going to show us exactly where this team is mentally. Are they ready to respond with physicality? Are they going to come out and punch first? Because you can talk about vibes all you want, but until that offense clicks for 4 quarters, not just 1 or 2 drives, and that defense starts making consistent stops, the questions will remain. The good news is they're getting healthier. That mini-bye came at the perfect time. Guys like Jalen Carter are back. Jordan Davis is practicing. The offensive line is stabilizing. It feels like the Eagles are getting back to full strength right when it matters most. And when this team is healthy, they're one of the most complete rosters in the league. That's not up for debate. But health doesn't fix everything. Execution still matters. Intensity still matters. And let's be real, this Vikings game is more than just a regular season matchup. It's personal, not just because of Isaiah Rodgers, not just because of the timing, but because this is the kind of game that tells the league, yeah, we took a hit, but we're still dangerous. A bounce-back performance here sets the tone for the rest of the season. It reminds the league, and maybe even reminds the locker room, that this team is built for the long haul. And there's something about how they've handled these losses that makes it feel like they're turning the page in the right way. No excuses, no panic, just accountability. You listen to someone like Nakobe Dean, and even he said it, they're not harping on what went wrong. They're moving forward. They watched the tape. They owned it. But now it's about Minnesota. It's about violence, toughness, getting that swagger back. And yeah, swagger matters. You could feel it last year. That confidence, that edge, it's not something you can fake. It comes from preparation, from dominating, from knowing you can line up across from anyone and beat them. That's what this team is trying to get back to. And from the way they're talking, it sounds like they know exactly how to do it. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments, and let's talk birds. Rumors are swirling in the NFL world after legendary broadcaster Joe Buck allegedly made critical remarks about the Philadelphia Eagles, sending shockwaves through the NFC East. According to insiders, Buck, known for his sharp analysis and decades behind the microphone, didn't mince words when discussing the reigning Eagles roster and recent performances. While the exact details of his comments remain partially unclear, sources suggest he questioned the team's consistency and leadership, igniting a storm among fans and analysts alike. The potential fallout is already palpable. Social media erupted almost immediately after snippets of Buck's critique began circulating, with Eagles fans both defending and dissecting his every word. Some commentators are speculating that this could mark a turning point in how media narratives influence locker room morale in the NFC East. After all, Philadelphia has been one of the most scrutinized franchises in recent years, and any external criticism, especially from a voice as prominent as Buck's, tends to attract enormous attention. Analysts are already debating the broader implications. Could Buck's remarks intensify the already heated rivalries with the Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders? Or might this push the Eagles to prove their detractors wrong on the field, using the criticism as fuel for a dominant season? The NFC East, long a battleground of unpredictability, now faces a new layer of intrigue, and league insiders can't help but watch closely. Meanwhile, Joe Buck's history of candid commentary only adds to the speculation. Known for being brutally honest, Buck has rarely shied away from calling out teams he feels are underperforming. That said, the intensity of the reaction suggests that the Eagles fan base sees his remarks as more than just commentary. They view them as a provocation. Already, debates are heating up in sports talk shows, fan forums, and even in casual conversations in Philadelphia bars and sports lounges. For now, no official response has come from the Eagles organization, leaving room for endless rumors and speculation. Could we see a public rebuttal from the team? Or might this quietly fuel internal motivation for a statement season? Whatever happens, one thing is certain. The NFC East has entered a new chapter of drama, and Joe Buck has inadvertently placed himself at the center of it. Fans, rivals, and analysts alike will be watching closely, waiting to see if the Eagles will crumble under criticism or rise even stronger, ready to silence the naysayers once and for all. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.